You've got visible abs and you train consistently. You eat well, at least by most people's standards. But your doctor just told you something's off. Your liver enzymes, blood pressure, and fasting glucose are creeping in the wrong direction. And this is not a made up scenario. It's a real pattern I see, and it happens because the fat that causes those problems isn't the fat you can see. It's the fat wrapped around your organs. And you can have too much of it, even at 12 or 15% body fat. My name is Adam. I'm a performance nutritionist who's helped over 200 men lose fat and significantly improve their health. And if you've ever wondered whether you're actually as healthy as you look, this video is for you. So when I was in my mid-20s, I was obsessed with body fat percentage. I would do caliper measurements regularly, and I would compare myself to textbooks. And most of the time I was between 12 to 15% body fat. I had visible abs and obliques. I was lean by anyone's standard. But your body fat percentage doesn't tell you the full story. Inside your abdomen, there are two kinds of fat. There's subcutaneous fat, the stuff just under your skin. That's the stuff you can grab. And then there's visceral fat. This is deeper, wrapped around your liver, your stomach, and your intestines. And some visceral fat is completely normal. So you're supposed to have it. So stop clicking on the videos promising you 0% visceral fat. Just a lie, really. But the problem is when there's too much of it, because visceral fat is metabolically active in ways that subcutaneous fat isn't. It drives inflammation. It's strongly linked to insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, and cardiovascular disease. And this is independent of your BMI, independent of what you weigh, and independent of what you look like with your shirt off. And researchers have a name for the pattern I described. TOFI, thin outside, fat inside. So you have normal weight, visible muscle, no obvious belly, but you have elevated cardiometabolic risk because what's sitting around the organs? The number on a DEXA scan or a set of calipers or a body composition app, none of those tell you where the fat is distributed. They can tell you how much, and that's not the same question. I remember getting a blood test, seeing elevated liver enzymes, and I was bordering on insulin resistance. So why does this happen? Why does one man at 13% body fat have clean organs and another doesn't? Let me start with the thing that surprised me the most when I went through the research on this, because it's probably not what you expect. Well, I didn't expect it. When the researchers put people on a very high fat diet, like genuinely high, around 70 to 75% of calories coming from fat, then they controlled the calories and ate mostly minimally processed foods, whole foods. Visceral fat doesn't increase more than on a low fat diet. In some trials, both lose a very similar amount of visceral fat. The macro split on its own doesn't drive this. It isn't the driver. I expected those results to go the other way, if I'm honest, but they didn't. So it's not the percentage of fat in the diet. What is it? Two things: a calorie surplus and fat quality. And the research on saturated fat is consistent. Higher saturated fat intake is associated with more visceral fat, even when total calories and overall body fat are similar between groups. It's not fat in general, but it's a type of fat. And then there's ultra processed food, which tends to bring both problems together at once. High in saturated fat, high in refined carbohydrates, and easy to overeat without even noticing. Think donuts. That combination, excess calories, poor food quality, the wrong fat sources, is what the data consistently links to visceral fat accumulation. Not a high fat diet like some doctors will tell you, but a low quality diet. A while back I had a client, I'll call him Steve. He came to me in his late 40s looking reasonably lean. He was training consistently. He was eating what he considered a healthy diet. But his GP flagged his blood work. He had his fasting glucose elevated and liver enzymes slightly off. I should probably say this guy was doing a low carb diet. He was eating a lot of fat. So then I went through his food properly. The macro split wasn't the issue. The quality was. He had some form of full fat dairy at every meal, a lot of coconut oil, fatty cuts of meat most nights, and also no fish intake. So his omega-3s were very low. His fat intake was really high and heavily skewed towards saturated sources. I'll couple that with poor sleep and 2 years of sustained stress from his business, and his body had been quietly redirecting fat towards his organs. We didn't overhaul everything. We shifted the fat sources. We replaced butter with olive oil and included more fish and some actual olives. Then we pulled back on the saturated fat, improved his sleep quality and duration where possible. And 4 months later, his blood work was back in range and his body fat barely moved. And the fat causing a problem wasn't the visible fat in the mirror, and the fix wasn't eating less fat. It was eating far better fat. So if you're eating a higher fat diet, keto adjacent or carnivore leaning, or just a lot of fatty meat and dairy, the question isn't whether your fat intake is high. The question is what kind and what's alongside it. Olive oil, olives, fatty fish, nuts, and avocado are sources consistently linked to less visceral fat. But saturated fat in excess, particularly from processed sources, is where the problem tends to start. Calories still matter, but in this context, quality does most of the work. So remember how I told you my bloods were out of whack? I was eating a ton of coconut oil, ghee, butter, and fatty cuts of meat. My saturated fat intake was really high. Okay, so what's rarely talked about is every person has what the researchers call a personal fat threshold, a point which your safer storage deposits like your hips, your thighs, and your subcutaneous layer are at capacity. Once you cross that threshold, extra fat has to go somewhere, and it goes to visceral fat. Two men with the same body fat percentage can be in completely different positions relative to that threshold. One still has plenty of room in a subcutaneous storage, and the other has hit his limit years ago. This can be due to genetics or a period of significant weight gain, leading to any additional fat going towards the deep compartment. And this is why some men carry a bit of extra weight with minimal metabolic consequence, and others can't. It's also why telling me you're 13% body fat doesn't fully answer the question. I won't sugarcoat it. Age makes it worse. As you get older, fat cells in the subcutaneous layer become less efficient. Fat redistributes inward. Most men over 40, even when eating well and training consistently, have to be more deliberate about this than when they were in their 30s. This is not me giving you some fancy protocol, just telling you how biology shifts and how ignoring it doesn't help you. However promising the carnivore diet looks, and you can't change your genetics or your age, but you can monitor the right things. So stop using a body fat percentage as your only marker. Your waist to height ratio tells you more about your visceral load than any DEXA scan can. Measure your waist roughly at navel height, and it should be less than half your height. If it isn't, that's your priority, regardless of what your body fat percentage is saying. And I would combine that with fasted glucose occasionally and a basic lipid panel from your GP. And not because you're unwell or because you need to obsess over these numbers by any means, but because those markers shift before anything visible does. They're the early warning signs, and they'll tell you things your mirror will tell you maybe 6 months from now. And this is the part most men skip because it doesn't feel as tangible as tracking macros or hitting step counts. But it's where a lot of men stall out even when everything looks right on paper. Sleep is a bigger lever than most people give it credit for. When you're consistently underslept, hunger hormones shift in the wrong direction. You have less leptin, more ghrelin. You're hungry and your appetite is harder to manage. And over time, the extra calories creep in and tend to end up exactly where you don't want them. But I want to be careful here though, because stress and cortisol get oversold in this space massively. You didn't grow a gut because you had a stressful Tuesday or even Friday. What actually happens is way more sneaky and it takes a lot longer. Imagine months of poor sleep, high training load with not enough recovery, and the coping behaviors that come with it. The late night snacking, the extra drinks at the weekend to decompress. This accumulation over time is what shifts your body composition and your blood work. Not a bad week. And on the training side, the model is simple. You apply stress, you recover, and you adapt. That's how progress works. But if recovery is chronically poor because sleep is bad, life is demanding, or you're just doing too much volume, you're no longer in the part of the curve where training is doing you good. You're just accumulating fatigue. And I spent a couple of years in my late 20s in exactly that position. I was training hard, eating reasonably well, 5.5 hours of sleep most nights, convincing myself I'd sort the rest out once things had calmed down. But on paper, everything looked okay. I had decent body fat levels and consistent training. My blood work and my waist weren't lining up with the effort I was putting in. But when sleep generally became a priority again, rather than something I just kept deferring, things shifted within weeks. My energy improved, my training quality went up, my waist started moving in a way it hadn't for months. And the fix in that situation isn't to push harder, it's to adjust the dose, pull volume back for a week or two, take an easier session when you need it, and let the recovery actually happen so the adaptation can follow. And if you're waking up tired most days, still sore after training, missing reps that should be well in your capacity, or relying on caffeine just to get through this session, this is not a motivation or discipline issue. This is your body telling you the training load and recovery aren't balanced. And listening to that is not losing progress or slacking. It's what allows you to keep progress. And on the topic of training, visceral fat responds to training differently to subcutaneous fat, and it's worth understanding why. Visceral fat has more receptors that respond to adrenaline, the hormone released during exercise. So when you train, visceral fat is more responsive to that signal than the fat sitting under your skin. It's more willing to be burned. And most people won't tell you that resistance training on its own, without additional cardio, reduces visceral fat to a meaningful degree without doing anything else. That's compared to doing nothing. Aerobic exercise has a disproportionate effect on it specifically, beyond what you'd expect from total weight loss alone. So if you've been training consistently, you're already getting this benefit. But the type of training matters, and so does the volume. 2 to 4 proper strength training sessions a week, plus some consistent aerobic work, and not punishing cardio, just sustained movement, even walking, maybe some cycling, a weekly run or two. That's enough to keep the visceral fat department responding. You don't need some HIIT boot camp or some wild high rock session. You need to actually recover. Okay, so now you know why your body fat percentage is not the full story. Looking lean and being lean inside out are not the same thing. And the fat that matters the most for your health isn't visible. It doesn't show up properly in a DEXA scan, and it doesn't care how clean your diet looks on paper. If the quality is poor, the stress is high, and the recovery is not there. And if you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe and watch this one next. I'll see you there.